Ba-da-da-da. Ba-da-da-da. I say this every single time, and people laugh and giggle because I do. Joel Felsenstein, thank you, my brother from another mother, for creating that. Different, not less. You can check him out. What a great guy, the founder of Rockstar X, and he is a musician, teaches autistic community kids, how to get into their music. He also is doing some amazing things to move beyond awareness and into the light so that we can start giving people that are different a leg up in the business world. So hats off to you, Joel Felsenstein. Thank you for that wonderful video. Today, my friends, I am with Michelle Arentz. She is the founder of Lazarus Consulting. She is amazing. If you haven't met her, you need to plug in. We're going to show her website later on, but I'm so thrilled today to have her on the show, and we're going to give it up, people.
I'm so thrilled to be here.
And it's awesome to have you today. We're going to be talking about how to create better cultures where the people in your culture, in your work, in your businesses can thrive. So one of the first things that I want to talk about, you and I have a ton of conversations outside, off channel, where we're not recording, and maybe we should record some of these. And
I think we should.
More nuggets with spicy sauce.
Oh man, we would have a lifelong series of conversations. If only I could, Chason. If only I could. I welcome it. I'm so delighted to be here with you for this. Anytime, anywhere, of course.
Well, this is, one of the things we talk about culture a lot, especially you will see since the pandemic. I think you cannot go a day without seeing a few posts, a few feeds, even maybe an event like this about culture in the workplace. And I think what strikes me is that if you're going to talk about culture in the workplace, then you've got to boil this down to start talking about how leaders talk to, communicate with, respect, and create space for people.
Yeah.
So if you really want to change your culture, if you really want to have a culture worth having other humans be part of in your business, then you got to start with people. So one of the great things that you do, and you do a lot of amazing things with your company, but and a lot of amazing things as a human being. But let's just dive in there. Let's start with, hey, where do you begin? I'm thinking about starting a business, and you know what? I want to have a great culture because everybody's talking about it, but I feel it in my heart. So where do we begin?
Great question. Well, again, I'm so delighted to be here, and this is such a hot topic. And because as the old saying goes, culture eats strategy. And I would say not just for breakfast, but lunch, dinner, dessert, and snacks in between. Now, we'll probably get back to that in a moment. Thank you, Peter Drucker, or we think it was Peter Drucker who said that. Great question to ask, Chason. So where do we start? Now, just before we went live, you and I were having a delightful little back and forth about how we both love gardening.
Yes.
We love gardening. Happy place, happy. And think about so many things that are associated with that. I was actually on a panel back in like late February with business leaders about culture. And one of the leaders in the audience raised their hand, and I just banged into my, I guess I did it. I just bashed my mic. It's all good. Did y'all hear that? And he raised his hand and he was like, you're talking about like strategy and all this stuff and, and culture, but like, shouldn't I be getting my business off the ground and getting a bunch of strategy stuff done first before, I've got to get that established before I start going down the path of thinking about my culture, right? And my answer to that was, here's where I'm going to connect the dots, Chason, I promise everybody. I said, think about this if you were going to grow a garden. Would you just randomly get your hands on some random seeds that you don't know what it is and just throw them up in the air anywhere and hope to hell that something good comes of this? No, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Well, not if you're hoping to have any level of success. You would never do
Why
that.
not?
Right. Because eventually something might work, right? No, you would be very thoughtful and, dare I say, very strategic about that, right? You'd be thinking about, what kind of garden would I want to grow? What kind of environment do certain plants that I want to grow need? You know, is it going to be a sunny spot or a shady spot? What kind of soil environment, you know, do I need to bring in? Blah, 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 blah. What kind of things would the plants need to nourish and thrive? Some plants don't like being next to each other. They don't do well together, and on and on. If you want to have a thriving, healthy garden, you're going to have to strategically think about what that garden is going to be and how are you going to plan it, build it, and grow it and sustain it and make sure that, you know, year after year, you get what you want out of that garden. Your culture in your company is exactly the same thing. It is never too early to be strategizing around your culture. So even when you're in the startup space, you're in the, you know, basic incubation space, you need to be thinking about, what's it going to be like to work here? Because the end game of culture is, what does it feel like to work in this environment? What does it feel like to be part of this workplace? And that starts to determine what your foundational planning, strategizing, kind of your, you know, whatever you want to call it, your North Star, your touchstone, everything needs to come back to that. What matters? What's going to be important? What kind of place is this going to be? And then you can start to build things out from there, which, by the way, will help you attract and retain the kind of people that you want. Right?
Yeah. You've got to do the work. We were talking about it before the show started, that you have to work on the foundation before you start to plant seeds.
Right.
There's a reason it's seed, sow, time, work, harvest.
Right.
And that middle section, that time and work part, they go hand in hand, and there's no like countdown clock. There's nothing that says, oh, well, you only have to work till this, or, you know, they only do this much work until, you know, this is going to be time to harvest this.
Right.
It's a constant thing. That's why when we talk about working with people, we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, being an ally, what belonging really means. All of these things come back to, it is a daily thing that we do. It's an action. And you say it so well. We talk about this all the time, and I absolutely love it. We have to be, as a leader, someone who is going to not just create psychologically safe spaces, not just ask the right questions, but be willing to do the work and give the space and give the tools and give the upskilling and the reskilling so that we can keep people. I hear this all the time, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I hear all the time, you know what, we made all these decisions, and there's just nothing we can do. We have to lay off people.
Right.
I literally challenge that philosophy, that it didn't happen overnight, that all of a sudden just some things crashed. Very, very rarely. I mean, people knew some of the housing market crash, some of the things people were talking. There was some scare. There was enough to get people to start to do some things to prepare. But it wasn't like, okay, you just woke up one day and all of a sudden, that's rare. Market crashes and things of that nature are rarities.
Yeah.
What I think we need to take a look at is how we prepare people in our culture, in our businesses, to be able to adapt, to have the tools, to cross-train, to reskill, to upskill, so that when we get into times of crisis, one, they have the skills to help us, all, because we don't, just because we're leaders doesn't mean that we have all the answers.
No.
but also so that instead of laying off all these people to hire other people or to lay off people because we have to change our focus, now we have people that can do that internally.
Right. Right.
But,
Oh, all of that and a bag of chips. Absolutely. I mean, again, thinking about things in the space of, if we'll continue down this road a little bit with our garden analogy, if you will, but it's like, this is an ongoing, you need to nurture. As much as you need to nurture your garden, you need to nurture your company and the people within that company. And each one is going to be a little bit different. There's not a one size fits all approach, right? So, that requires constant, regular, whatever you want to call it, maintenance, upkeep, connectivity. You're going to go out there and you're going to check, or is there any chance there's weeds coming in? You don't want weeds in your garden, probably. Now, you can define what a weed is. Some people think dandelions are weeds. Others think they're, a nutritional powerhouse. Your choice. You get to decide. That's part of planning and nurturing your culture.
There's a reason why there's dandelion tea, and there's there are dandelion pills, there's dandelion tea.
Yeah, dandelion.
Yeah, exactly. This is a great point. I love this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I love using analogies. Hopefully it's helping in this space. But, think about that. Like, that would be part of it too, is define, like, what's worth keeping in your garden or what isn't, what belongs and what doesn't. That's part of your culture. And then nourish and nurture the things that you want there, and the things that don't belong there, that get in the way, that are detrimental to the environment, do something about them. But you also have, like, do you think it's always going to be sunshine? It's never going to hail. You're never going to have a windstorm. I don't know. Like, to your point about, like, these kinds of things, like downturns, they're not particularly out of the blue accidental. There's usually signs and symptoms along the way, which we also have to pay attention to. Be anticipatory. What's the worst case scenario? I don't know. What's the worst thing you'd have to do I guess you'd have to burn your garden to the ground. I mean, how likely are you to, I've had some pretty funky things happen in a garden, but I've never ripped the entire garden out or bulldozed it. Right. So having that mindset and having that foresight, and to your point, ask for help when you don't know. That's okay. That's why we have garden centers and experts for our gardens. That's why we have forums and exchanges. That's why business leaders need to be able to say, look, I don't know. Let's talk to people who do know something in this space. And then me thinking about, well, what can I do about this? Ask your people. Where the heck are these leaders in terms of ask your dang people? You know who knows your company best? The people working in it. They are on the front lines every day. I say this all the time too, and I'm probably going to go down a rabbit hole here, because you know me, Jason. Like, people complain when they care. Yes, some people just want to bitch for the sake of bitching, but I think those are, not so common. When an employee is brave enough to raise their hand and say, hey, something about this doesn't seem right. Something about this is bugging me. This is really stupid. This is wasteful. This is what. Listen to them. In fact, encourage them. I'll tell you something. I bet Boeing is kind of wishing right now that maybe they've done things a little differently with leadership and decision-making in the spaces of, do you raise your hand when certain things are happening or not happening, right? Even the big guns get it wrong.
Absolutely.
And that was leadership, and that was culture. Like, this is a case study in what not to do over there. But, like, encourage your people to say, look around. Is there something that doesn't make any sense? What's going on? I would also advise leaders to say, who's really good at figuring this out? Your newest people.
Yeah. Fresh eyes.
Your newest people.
Fresh eyes.
Fresh eyes and ears on this, because they're the ones that they haven't been in it long enough to say, oh, this is just how we do it. I don't know. It seems like it's always been this way. They're going to be very new to this, and they're going to be very quick to go, I don't understand this. This does not make sense to me. And if you're struggling to explain it, you might want to rethink what it is.
and they haven't been impacted by anyone else. So if you
No.
have people,
Mhm.
you have, just because you want to have a culture that is very positively centered around people does not mean that you have challenging hires, that you are going to have somebody that is struggling or that is not maybe the best fit, and that you have to have a courageous conversation to try to change that or
Yeah.
make a decision that they are not a great fit. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you're never going to let people go.
Right.
It means that when you let people go, they are expecting it because you've had the conversations with them. You've given the expectations. You've
Right.
offered them
Yes.
the ability to grow and learn and upskill and reskill and move in a positive direction. And they've chosen not to. They've
Right.
chosen
Yeah.
not to.
Yep.
That's a different scenario altogether.
Oh yeah.
And so I applaud what you're saying. And I think it
Mhm.
makes a huge difference when we admit that we don't have all the answers, but we
Mhm.
also are clued in to making sure that all of our people have the space and feel safe to speak up.
Yes. Well, and that's super critical. Again, do I feel safe to speak up? This is, unfortunately or fortunately, this is why we have to have whistleblower laws,
Yeah.
because it's around, trying to legislate safety in the space of raising your hand and saying something here isn't adding up. Now, you hope you don't ever have to go down the road of going that far with it. The sooner you can catch it, the better. And from a leadership standpoint, model the way, model the way. If you don't know it, don't bluster around and fake it and fudge it and lie about it. Just say, look, I don't know. Let's find out. I'm going to find out, or we're going to figure it out. Leveraging your people. And absolutely, if somebody doesn't, first of all, nobody in this day and age, I would think, is sitting here going, I'm going to stay with any one company for the rest of my life, right? Like, chances are your employees are not going to do that. And chances are, you're not going to want them to necessarily do that. So understanding that within the time frame that we've got, like you're saying, make the most of this. Give people what they need to thrive, not just survive, so both sides of the equation are making the most of the situation for the time that you have together. Whether that's, and hopefully it's not like 2 weeks because you didn't onboard them, welcome them, or do anything right by them. And that's also part of the equation that I'm always talking about is make it easier to get it right than get it wrong. Create a culture that says we are here to, put tools in your toolbox and show you how to use them and make sure you have opportunities to use them and keep fresh on those things. But if we're not, it's people plus process, right? If we're not setting things up in a way that you clearly know what to do, when to do it, why to do it, how to do it, and all those kinds of things, I'm actually setting you up for failure. That's not a good cultural dynamic.
No.
Because here's what's going to happen. People are going to do one of two things. And think about this from your cultural perspective. If I don't know what to do in a certain situation, I'm your employee and I don't know what to do, there's basically one of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to shut down and do absolutely nothing because I'm freaked out and I don't want to make a mistake and I might get in trouble and get yelled at, because chances are if I'm in a culture that sets me up to not know what I'm doing, there's probably other things going on there, right? So I'm either going to freeze and nothing gets done, or I'm going to go cowboy and make something up, right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to, I don't know, fake it until I get into trouble or something gets caught. Now, which one of those does your customer prefer? Would your customer rather have nothing done, or would your customer rather have something made up? Because that's the dynamic that you're setting up in a culture that says we don't set people up for success here. And that means that we need to nurture them. We need to train them. We need to teach them. We need to develop them. We need to make it clear to them what their options and opportunities are and how they can make the most of themselves in this environment, and that you as the leader are really invested in them because you recognize that they are the business. Because you and I also know, and we've talked about this before, and this kind of goes back to the layoffs, but let's go further than that. What if, dear business leader, everybody in your business tomorrow morning decided, I'm not coming in? You don't have a business. Look, I'm a solopreneur. If I don't work, there is no business that day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, your worst case scenarios, in a manner of speaking, is everybody goes on strike or everybody walks out. This is where you have to fundamentally understand that what's between whatever strategy you've got and the business outcomes you're hoping to achieve are the human beings in between. And the environment in which you've set them up to operate makes a huge difference to how quickly and easily they can execute on those strategic plans to give the results that everybody's looking for.
Well said. Absolutely. It's so crazy to me that it doesn't matter how many times we say it, how many different organizations say it, how many times it's in prominent magazines, it's in journals, it's in newspapers, it's talked about, that we still have these conversations, that we still need to teach it because there are so many leaders that just still don't get it.
Yeah.
The data's out there, but it's almost like, if we're going to keep up with the garden thing, then I'm going to say it like this. You literally are standing in the middle of the garden with everything blooming around you, and you don't know what to do. You don't know whether to grab a basket and start picking the fruits and vegetables. You don't know how to tend any of the vegetables. You're just standing in the middle of the garden with all of these things around you, like Ricky Bobby with your hands up, like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
That's what leaders are acting like in some cases.
Yeah.
That, we've got all these things happening and we made $1 million last year, but really, literally, I don't know how we did it.
And I think, and that's a great point. And I think that sense of being overwhelmed and what am I, where do I start and what am I supposed to do? So, I think that might be part of the equation. There's two things. One, there's that sense of overwhelm, like, where do I even begin? Because if I didn't begin early on in planning my garden, I'm now standing in the middle of a garden that somehow sprung up around me. Congratulations. Hey, but that takes a little bit of a lift. I think the other thing is, where's the alignment? I talk about alignment a lot, and I think it's very important to understand as individuals, we need to have alignment between who we are as ourselves, who we are in our work, and we need to be aligned with, do we care about, are we well aligned with what matters in the business? Because we know culturally as well, if my values aren't the company's values, it's kind of like bad dating. We can go out for a little while, but we're not really going to last. It gets awkward pretty quickly. I was actually doing a podcast episode recording for my podcast earlier today, and one of the things we were talking about a lot was Gen Z, our newest workforce members, who are very quick. And I appreciate this like crazy, but they're very quick to express that, they really don't have an on-off switch at the door. And if their employer is not in tune with what they're in tune with and what they care about, they're not really, you're not going to be their employer. This is your up and coming workforce. And if you are misaligned with them, that's going to be problematic. Now, we can break it down and make it a little less whelming or overwhelming. And I would say, culture in its simplest kind of comes down to 4 key elements that when they're misaligned, they're problematic. But there's 4 things going on. First is your aspirations. What are you saying about yourself? This can be that mission and vision and value statement stuff that sadly, gets thrown up on the wall, but nobody ever really does anything about it if it gets thrown up on the wall, right? But this is the stuff this is where your website goes. This is your any messaging that you have out in the world about yourselves. These are your aspirations. What do you say about yourselves as a company? Okay, but that has to match your actions. Don't you dare tell people that our human capital is our greatest resource. We love our people. And then your actions fail to match that.
Yep.
Yeah, we care about our people, but not when they need bereavement leave, or they have a baby, or maybe they lose a baby. Oh no, well, get your butt back in the building. Okay, so your actions have to match your aspirations. You can't say, that's called hypocrisy. If you say this, but you do that, and that's at all levels, but especially with leaders, don't be the do as I say, not as I do leader.
Yep.
So right there, we could have a misalignment. Everybody knows it. Third thing on the list, your artifacts. This is your collateral, your stuff. This is everything from what kind of physical work environment am I in, to what kind of swag you might have, if you have any, who gets that kind of stuff, right? So don't tell me that you aspirationally care about people while the break room is falling apart, the floor tiles are peeling, the furniture's put together with duct tape, and the fridge hasn't been cleaned in 6 months. No, I literally was in one location. I'm not going to name names of where it was, but I'm just going to say I was in a work location. I am not making this up. They withheld toilet paper rolls from the women's bathroom. You had to go ask for toilet paper?
At some point, whether it's you don't trust your staff because you've created this is such a negative environment.
Right.
I mean, what are we saying? What are we saying when this has to happen? Like, automatically, you know that the culture is so toxic in this place.
And that was a place where, like, there was no soap in the soap dispensers, and obviously no toilet paper in the bathroom at one point. Like on and on and on. Break rooms falling apart. All that kind of stuff. So the artifacts also can be mismatched and misaligned. We can't say that we're this, that, and the other thing. And then even that does, we don't give people the equipment that they need. We don't give people the tools that they need. That's also part of your artifacts. The copier's busted again or whatever. We didn't get a software upgrade.
Even if the tool is software, even if the tool is, if the tool's something as simple as I need more freaking desk pins or I need a stapler that works. They make fun of that. They made fun of that, in, shows and movies. Like, I was told that I could have a stapler.
Yeah.
It's so funny because it is really happening. Like, there's places where, no, sorry, you can't have office equipment, or you have to do a requisition, and maybe down the road we'll get this for you. So we're talking people about how you create culture that actually matters, because culture is just thrown out like this word that, it's just magic. Right. But it gets down to helping people.
Exactly. And then that's the perfect thing to say about the artifacts. And again, it's back to, are you setting me up for success or failure as your employee? If your culture is keyed up in a way that says, I'm not going to give you a stapler, or I'm not going to give you the software upgrade, or whatever it is that you need, how am I supposed to get my job done? Right. And then the fourth thing that comes in there, so we've got aspirations, what we say about ourselves, actions, whether they match, what we do matches what we say, artifacts, which are physical manifestations of what we're talking about. And then the last one is assumptions. And that's a hard one because it's the undercurrent of what's not said. It probably isn't in the handbook. Like, there's rules and then there's how we do things. Okay. And so what kind of assumptions are we making? Like, everybody understand. This is where I go back to some of your best people to point out where there are misalignments and disconnects are your newer people, because they will question the assumptions. Well, everybody knows that. No, I don't. I did not know that. I did not understand that. And this can be undercurrents of things like, you were talking earlier about like, belonging, inclusivity, diversity. Does it feel cliquey over here? Am I welcome at the lunch table? Am I included or excluded? What assumptions are we making about each other? And do we ever have opportunities to dig into, maybe we've been doing something for a while and we should start asking ourselves, does it make sense to do it this way anymore or do it at all? We assume we're going to have a certain kind of whatever holiday schedule, or we assume that everybody wants the same birthday celebration. No, they don't. One size does not fit all in these spaces. So when we have these kinds of, at minimum, these 4 kind of key elements are not all jiving and thriving, we have issues. And leaders need to be looking at what are they saying and doing in those spaces? And are they all matching up? Because the minute they don't, we have discord, dissonance, and everybody knows it and feels it, right? And however, they may not feel empowered to do anything about it except either disengage from their work, because that's a coping mechanism. And by the way, 2/3 of the workforce right now is disengaged.
Yeah.
But enjoy paying a full paycheck for partial performance. And that's kind of on you. Or the alternative is they are going to be looking to go elsewhere where they do get the environment and the alignment that they need to feel that, when you guys say that our passion and our purpose in this company is to do XYZ, I really feel that. And I know where my level of connection is. What do you exist for? And does every person in your company feel that they understand clearly how they contribute to that purpose and that existence? That's also an underpinning of your culture.
Love it. I want to bring this back up because this was a great point. Ole is in the Hounds of Business. I want to thank you, brother, for showing up. Thank you, Jody, for showing up. Anybody else that's on YouTube or Facebook that is not commenting or I can't see it, or if you're on your phone, I apologize. And thank you for being here.
Yeah, we love you here anyway.
But I want to talk about this because this was a great point. This all goes back. If we are not consciously included, we are unconsciously excluded. Yes. My buddy, when I was highlighting, that's great. When I was highlighting our video, our intro outro video that Joel Felsenstein from Rockstar X created. Joel is autistic. He is neurodivergent, and he talks about, through his company Rockstar X and what he's creating, about different, not less. And it's interesting to me that even beyond what we've been talking about basics in just human basics in being a leader that provides a culture worth being in, when we take the time to actually get to know our people, to move beyond just the basics of, okay, I'm going to try to provide for you what you need. I'm going to really try to actively listen. I'm going to do all these great things that tell me I'm supposed to do, that I feel in my heart I'm supposed to do, because I want to have a culture that matters. I want to have diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. I want people to feel like this is a place that they can be proud to come to. But going that next step to really take the time to learn about your people, to realize who they are as individuals, so that you see them as human beings and know them, know their families, know their struggles, know where they're coming from, and give them the space to share with you, to be honest with you, to show up and consciously include them in your conversations, in your work environment, in your space, and give them the opportunity to bloom where they're at.
Yes.
That to me is like next level. Those are the leaders that don't just get it, they get it.
Yes.
And that is like next level difference.
And I'm going to make a minor distinction. I'm going to throw a little extra challenge in the mix on what you just said. Love what you were just saying. And of course, what you're talking about there is back to actions, right? Our actions as leaders. I'm going to make a minor adjustment to what you said about the time spent with your people to get to know your people.
Hit it.
Let's not take time. Let's make time.
Good distinction.
I love what you're saying, Chason, and I'm not correcting you, but in terms of it is a far more deliberate, mindful activity to say, I am going to make the time and the space to get to know my people. And I love what Ollie just said there too about, we work with humans. We are human beings, not human doings, right? And so if you really want the actions, the attitudes and the actions and everything, these all tie together, right? So you have to make the time to connect with your fellow human beings. And really at the core of it all, we all just want to be heard and understood, heard, seen, and understood. Okay.
Absolutely.
So being the leader who makes the time on a regular basis and not just about work, get to know them as a whole, because a whole human being shows up every day.
Yep.
Right. And so, and the other challenge that goes with that is in making that time to get to know them, open yourself up, get a little bit vulnerable. I know it can feel a little icky, but I promise in the long run, it'll be okay. Be a little bit vulnerable in that space and let them have the opportunity to learn more about you, right? Don't you as a leader also want to be seen, heard, and understood as a whole human being, right? I mean, I think half the battle with burnout these days, which again is like we've got burnout culture. Why is everybody so exhausted all the time and so burnt out? I think it's complicated and there's a lot of reasons, but I'm positive that one of the underpinnings is we have far too many workplaces where people feel that they cannot be themselves. One of two things. I either can't be myself at work. I always have to be on guard because I don't necessarily feel that I will be seen, heard, understood, and accepted for who I am. I don't get to bloom in place. Or I am poorly aligned with the work that I'm doing, and it's exhausting to try to do stuff that isn't really me.
Yeah.
Right? So it could be a combination of the two or any one of those. But I really do think that a lot of burnout comes from it is exhausting to pretend to be something or somebody that you're not. Right? Right. And so if I have to hide, I mean, I'm not saying, look, me saying, run naked down the hallway and do something inappropriately stupid. I mean, let's be professional here. But the idea that do I have to, what if I can't tell people about who I love and I might feel judged for somebody that I love or something that I'm interested in, or to your point, I'm neurodivergent or I see the world in a different way and then I'm going to get crapped on for that. Well, I'm going to shut down pretty dang fast. And I think that's also part of the disengagement challenge that we've got. Yeah, I love that. Burnt out doesn't mean having to when there's not enough wood to fight. Yes, exactly. Or don't shine your light, hide it. Yeah. Again, let's do it within reason. We're talking about workspaces, but I really feel like how many people are like, I can't be open and identify things about myself. I'll be shot down. I mean, look at how much is going on in certain pockets of this country right now where we're trying to create laws to shut down diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff. Yeah. We're trying to legislate against diversity. Good luck.
Well, we are closing in on the time to end the show. So I want to open up if there's any questions. Now's the time. Otherwise, we want to thank everybody for being here. Whether you made a comment, you didn't make a comment, whether you're going to watch this after the fact. I call that Allies for Good replay. Thank you so much for your time here. Thank you for being part of what we're talking about, being part of the discussion. Ollie and Jody, I see you. Thank you so much. I would just say that, you know what? and thank you, Michelle, for my buddy.
Pleasure.
I appreciate you so much. I love talking to you.
Yeah.
I love the trouble we get into
I do
on
too.
and off camera.
Well,
And you know what? It is all about taking care of people.
absolutely. 100%. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Absolutely love it. And let's all, keep this community and this messaging going, because together we really can and will make a difference.
Absolutely. We will catch you next time. Thank you for coming.
Thanks.